Okay, gonna get this a little further from my face, but I'm trying not to clip on the microphone. I can still hear it, so I gotta turn on my headsets, and a whole lot of the noise goes away. There we go. So, sounds like it's working okay. I can't tell if it's clipping the camera. It's losing squelch. I don't know. You might just have to live with it. Pretend that's my natural voice. So it's Sunday morning. Tower opened 15 minutes ago. A couple days ago, I had my observer training for the Civil Air Patrol, and as a reminder, that's right seat, co-pilot, managing, like I said before, if you didn't hear it, observer is kind of co-pilot, but more of a bookkeeper, tracking times, time off, time we got to the grid, time we found the target, if we found the target, time out of the grid, so a little bit of bookkeeping. Not required to be a pilot, but it does help because one of the things the pilot needs is a lot of help managing the nav system in the Garmin 1000. And the Garmin 1000 is very similar to the Skyview, except it includes the navcom. So all the radio frequencies are in there. So there's a big complicated audio panel. It's the most amazing audio panel I've ever seen. It does all kinds of really neat things. But the interface is very, very different. We only have the single knobs. They have the concentric knobs, so outer, inner, push button for cursor, things like that. The user interface, the way the screens are set up is different, so it'll take some getting used to. The observer officially is not required to do that, but it makes you a much better, much more helpful observer to be able to do that. So in addition to training for the observer, I'd taken 12 hours of in-class training, actually online training. You have to fly 3 sorties with a mission commander in the airplane, which I was all in favor of that because I'm desperate to get into that 182. It's a beautiful airplane. So we did that Friday. We started going over, I had to get signed off on the radios, the communication radios, had to get signed off on that. So I think we started about 8 or 8:30, probably around 8, and finally got to the airplane about noon 30. So by the time we got in the airplane, I had been absorbing a lot, so I was a little overwhelmed. One of the things was departing from OSU, not Bolton, kind of immediately put me a little bit behind the 8 ball because everything that should have been northwest was actually due west, and there's just a whole flood of things happening. So it was originally a little bit too much, not too much, it was a lot to absorb. And I've seen that with people that I let fly my airplane that are really not pilots and haven't flown in a small plane. Sometimes they're so overwhelmed, they really just can't concentrate on anything because the experience is so visceral. It was something like that, but not nearly as bad. So learning the Garmin, I tried to do it on a computer, I watched some YouTubes, and I get the concepts, but so for the most part, I had no trouble with it at all. You know, big knob is chapters, small knob is pages, push this to move the cursor and all that. But they do a little more advanced work than that. It's not just a direct to. It's kind of like I try to get with the Skyview. I try not to be just the direct to pilot. I need to know how to do a flight plan, how to insert a user waypoint. That exists in the Garmin, but it's all different. So trying to do that OJT, basically on the job, it wasn't horrible, but I did kind of every now and then, oh darn it, I hit the wrong button, start over. But you know, they're very patient. The instructor, I mean, it was Joe. You've flown with Joe with me before. He's very, very patient, and so it's going to take some time. But after the second mission, I was doing a lot better because I'm starting to feel the progression. And what will happen in the future is what I've asked for. My request was to be a scanner a few times. That's the person in the back seat that's primarily just looking out the window hunting for the target. The benefit to me would be seeing how the mission commander and the observer work together and how all the flow works and get used to that routine before I jump in and start trying to do the routine. Or I could just do a lot of training flights. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do a little bit of practice. A large degree of the practice was learning how to use the ForeFlight. It's very, very handy for the ground planning. And actually the ForeFlight and the Skyview is a slightly better combination than the ForeFlight and the Garmin because I can create, now the Garmin can create for you, if you can get down deep into the interface, it can create 3 of the different search patterns, creeping line, expanding square, and sector. This one actually has parallel line alongside that, but creeping line, the difference between parallel line and creeping line. Parallel line, they're going to say go out to this grid. CAP has their own charts that have CAP grids on them. So right now we're sitting in Munkin 7 grid delta. So what you do is a parallel line. I mean, they're very, very similar. They're just lines next to each other. That's more for searching a grid or a sector of a grid. Whereas creeping line, I'm going to follow a route. So one of the things will happen is an airplane was flight planned. In this case, I'm going from Madison County down to Circleville. And they had flight planned and they never showed up at Circleville. So the first thing they will do is a route search. They'll go to Madison County, offset a half mile or so, go down to Circleville looking for wreckage, and come back. And if they don't find it, if they have an area, they could do the entire route, but that would be really long. If they have some idea of where, or if there are other airplanes looking, you'll get a segment of that line and you'll do a creeping line search. So you'll start here and you'll just go back and forth. And that's taking a much closer look at a certain part of that route. And that's what I wanted to practice today. It's a little bit tricky. I think I'm going to proceed this. If I don't, it means I just got lazy. I will have proceeded this portion with a lot of the leg work, hand work, written work, measurement work I had to do to find that initial spot. Because unfortunately on ForeFlight I have not been able to find a way where I could say I want to create a user waypoint off of Madison County Airport at a radial of, I think it ended up being 13 something. And 10-20 miles. So what I did myself is I want to be between Madison County and Circleville, 20 miles out, and start my search there. So that took a little bit of paperwork. It's done now. So all the lat longs are right there. In theory, all I need to do to get that into the dynon, and this is what's really neat. I think I just pushed this up arrow, and I wonder if I'm on the Wi-Fi. I have to be on the Wi-Fi for this to work. I think there's one that says send to panel. So I'm going to have to duck out here right quick and see if I'll see if I'm on the Wi-Fi. So hold on a second. This is boring. I'm going to do this and I'll get back to you. Okay, this is something you wouldn't want to say in various company, but my dongle wasn't working. this little guy right here is the Wi-Fi adapter. So I just reset that. Now I have the panel button.
Flight plan updated.
And flight plan updated. So if we zoom out, now of course it would appear that the ForeFlight has completely lost its mind and completely lost my search pattern, which hopefully I saved. So let's go to here's saved flight plans, and yeah, there it is. So let's load. There it is, back again. Okay, so now I should be able to zoom this out and scroll down here and see some. No, it didn't do it because it wasn't in there yet. So I need to actually go panel again. Okay, Wi-Fi plan on so should now be here. Don't know why it's doing that flashy thing. There we go. There's my. Oh, that's booting. I don't know why it's showing me booting all big and exploded like that. Oh, because I have the cursor set. Okay, there we go. I need to zoom out. So there is our creeping line search. It will look a little bit different from this because this is north up and this is track up. I probably ought to change that because the Garmin's are track up, and that was one of the other things that confused me. I was used to the airplane always going up. Now here it was going sideways, and it kind of messed me up. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to have to think about that because I actually do like track up, and I'm probably just going to leave it that way. So with that out of the way, I can make this go away, and it should follow us along now that it has the Wi-Fi. I'm going to get a GPS for this. I did not buy the internal GPS because for the same money you get one that's a lot better. I'm going to be buying one of those. Okay, so we're about ready to go. Engine's warmed up. What else do I need to do? I think I've got my initial course set in there. Yes, so we're going to go to, I should be able to go to nav, and that should be taking us to that little spot down there. I've got the purple line, so that indicates that that's going to work. Yeah, there's your next waypoint is 39.8 miles away. Wow, that's a little further. That can't be right. That doesn't make sense. I wonder if it's actually starting us. No, we'll see what happens. And I can always hand fly it. Push comes to shove. I know how to hand fly. But we could look. Let's see in a map. Let's see what's going on in the flight plan. Yeah, it looks like it's live and ready to go. Oh, it's 9.4 miles. I was looking at the wrong thing. 9.4 miles. That makes a lot more sense because I'm really not anxious to burn up an entire tank of gas doing this. The United States Air Force paid for Friday, which was... That's really neat. That's really, really neat. I'm paying for today. So let's see if we have our weather yet. That would be map, info, and we'll go over here to weather. And we have an altimeter setting, which is nice. It is way down here, 3014, so let's get that in there. One less thing to do. Always nice to be prepared. I didn't pay attention to winds because there aren't any. It's probably going to be runway 4, given that there are no winds. But let's go ahead and take a look. So weather, yeah, wind calm. So 4 is exactly the wrong direction we want to go. I don't really mind today. I could ask for whatever runway I want, but you probably can't do that at Don Scott. It was busy, busy, busy. I haven't been in a really busy airport for a long time, and it was hectic. Coming back in, we were told to stay out of the Class Delta because they were just so busy with the student planes. And that's, you know, the way things go in airplanes. Not that big of a deal. I did get the fly the 182 for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, just to get a feel for it, and I do like it. It started to come back to me. I did my instrument rating in one, or part of my instrument rating, so nice to be back in a big, heavy airplane that you don't constantly have to fly all the time. So I'm going to shut this down until we get out to the runway. Now, calling in with my tail number reminded me of something. So the airplane has a tail number, but it's not what they use for official Civil Air Patrol flying. They have a cap number. So it would be something like cap 1234. When you're talking to ATC, that's the way you talk to them. You don't use the tail number. So it would be cap 1234. Except if you're talking to Civil Air Patrol ground, it's cap 1234. Or what's the other one? 1235 or 9er. So they actually have two different ways of calling depending on who you're talking to. Now, if you're lucky, the pilot is doing all the ATC communications. He's doing the 1234 thing, so you can remember to do 1234, because that got a little confused in my head at times. But that too, it's just a matter of building habits. It's not super complicated. It's a matter of building new habits, which the only thing I can foresee is someday he's thinking, well, wait a minute, am I in the Skyview or am I in the Garmin? Because, you know, jumping back and forth. The solution for that is to stay current in both airplanes, and because I love to fly, that's not going to be a gigantic problem. I have yet to develop the same affinity for vacuuming the house. Alright, so we still got to run up to get through. I'm trying to keep the files short because it takes a lot less time for me to edit them if they're short. So I'm going to get through the run up, and we'll pick it up again after takeoff. Okay, so run up is complete. I have tower frequency in, and I'm monitoring 121.5, which is a cap thing that I've adopted as my own, or been asked to adopt, however you want to say it. So we're going to take off runway heading. I'm going to go to 2,500 feet. I'm going to engage the autopilot for nav and let it do most of the flying. It won't be able to make the half mile. These legs are spaced a half mile apart. I'm not sure it can make a half mile turn, so I'll probably hand fly that. I may actually do the whole thing just using track mode rather than letting the autopilot try to fly that. The idea is just to free myself up to concentrate on other things. Now, some of that bookkeeping that I have to try to remember, I have to do, pre-takeoff, I should have captured the hobs. I didn't. I can get that later. They're going to want hobs time and tack time for wheels up. And then clock time, which I'll do in Zulu because it's right there in front of me. So I'm going to call him in a minute. He's going to clear me pretty close to, whatever it is right now. That's going to be 12:02. So we're going to be 12:02 on the Zulu time. Hobbs is 365.5, and tack is 273.3. And then the next one I'll have to do is when we enter the search grid, which is going to be down here at that first waypoint. So we are on tower, we're ready to go. I can't think of anything else I need to do. Everything's good. I do have my altitude preset. I do want to set it's going to go to 600 foot per minute, and I can live with that. That's my default. So we're going to approach the line here. Alrighty. And we're going to give him a holler until we're ready to go. Old Tower, experimental 284 Delta Golf, ready for takeoff, runway 22, departing VFR Southwest.
Experimental 284 Delta Golf, Bolton Tower, runway 22, clear for takeoff, proceed on course southwestbound.
Clear for takeoff 224 Delta Golf. Oh, there's a big hawk sitting out there on one of the flashy strobe lights. Oh, don't be talking to me. I got everybody talking to me, now the iPad's talking to me. Look at that big, you can't see him, big old hawk sitting out there on the flashy light. Ooh, he's a big one. Wow. Okay, here we go. So we're going to get lined up. And I'm going to go ahead, once we're on lined up, I'm going to set the track so I can just use track mode if I choose to. And that should be it. We're ready to go. So stick full back, throttle full in. Very little rudder needed today. Nose up. And we're off. Out of the way, sparrows. Thank you. Now we're just going to let her climb on up. A little bit trimmed down. We're not in that big of a hurry. Now I'm going to get everything set up. I'm going to get altitude up, and I'm going to turn on track mode. And I'm just going to go ahead and engage the autopilot and kind of monitor what happens because we're still kind of close to the ground. Track isn't going exactly where I wanted it to. I want track. There we go. Turn it back on. Track. There we go. Get over here a little bit. All right, let's correcting for me. We do have a little bit of a crosswind is what that was all about. All right. So actually I can go nav, and that's going to take us to the starting point here. And no traffic. What a beautiful day. Very nice day. Alright, so we have 8.5 minutes before we get to the grid entry. I was pretty close on the time, 12:02, 12:03. I could change that, but it's not important. Alright. So at this point, now when we get to, I'm going to fly at cruise speed. Normally what they'll do is fly at the normal cruise speed, which in a Cessna 182 is very similar to mine. When they get to the grid, they slow down to about 80 knots. And that, it took me a while to hand fly that because the nose comes way, way up, and I'm just not used to that. Very, very different sight picture, and it'll take time to get used to that. I'm just going to fly out there at cruise speed, slow down to 80 knots as we enter the pattern. Now it's going to be a little tricky because I have it's going to be a 180-degree turn. So when we get there, I'll do that manually with the track knob to get back onto the actual beginning of the grid search there, or the creeping line search, and there we go. So I can shut you down for about 7 minutes.
Approaching.
You again. Turn that off for now. Oh, there it goes. Another aspect of the observer job is crew management, and that's basically the photographer or the scanner in the back. And you need to tell them what's coming up. They're looking out the window. They don't know how to brace themselves. So right now they're relaxing. They're getting ready. When we get about 30 seconds out from that waypoint, which is about a minute and a half, I would tell scanner 30 seconds till grid entry, and they know to get ready to start doing their job. So right now we are a minute 45, so it's an idea, it's just kind of keeping an eye on the time. We're probably going to be 356.7 on the Hobbs. Yep, there it is, 356.7, so I'm going to write that down. Because each of those is 6 minutes, so we'll make that easily. And TAC is 273.4. And I would have to remember to call. This is a call back to the ground units, or back to incident commander, basically whoever's running the show. We have in about a minute and 10 seconds, we're going to call him and say entering the grid. So that would be cap 12, well that would be cap 1, 2, 3, 4, entering grid, over. You got to remember to say over. That's another new thing for me. Oh, go ahead and zoom this in. So we are 40 seconds. And right about now it says scanners, 30 seconds until grid entry. And I'd probably go ahead and call the command center at cap 1, 2, 3, 4, entering the grid at blah, 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 Zulu, which is 1209 Zulu, over. All right, I have to get ready to fly, so I'm going to center my nav, or my track, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to track mode, and let's get out here so we can make this turn. And we need to start slowing down. Now, they would fly this at 1,000 AGL, which is 2,000 MSL. I'm going to fly it at 2,500 because I don't really want to be that low. And we need to get slowed down a little bit. Actually, we need to get slowed down a lot a bit. So that was potentially a little early to call in grid because it's going to take a minute or so to get turned around. But, you know, I would be starting to look already if I was sitting in the back. That's a fine point. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's irritating. I'm not going to do do that. Okay, I guess I'm shouting at you guys again. That's what calls it the clip. I'm shouting over the noise of the radio. So let's see how good I can do on getting this track turned back around here. And there's 79 knots. We want to watch the airspeed, especially in the 182. It'll bleed it off, and it's such a stable airplane, and if you're on autopilot, you're not going to notice, yada yada. Get this all the way around. So more throttle. We'll need a little more throttle in the turn. It's not going to be able to turn it steeply enough. So I need to give it a little more room. Well, it's doing okay. I stand corrected. It's doing okay. Do need to be looking for traffic. I'm all alone up here, I hope, but I'm the only eyeballs in the airplane, so I got to look for traffic. Now normally that view would be blocked because the 182, that wing comes down and blocks just everything you can hope to see. Oh, this is going to work out well. I've only overshot, actually didn't overshoot it at all. It's perfect. All right, so now we are entering the grid, and we'll have a minute until the first turn because it's only like 1 mile on each side or half mile on each side. I forget what I did. I think it was a half mile each side. So, now I could let nav do this, but it's already telling me it's not going to be able to make that turn. It's only going to make about 90 degrees of that 180. So I'll do the turns myself. And let's get zoomed right in. So I'm right over the track. It's very nice to be where they expect you to be. And now the scanner is looking out the left, the observer is looking out the right, because he's already made his calls. So he can now participate in the search. They're both working back there. Now when I get to the end of this, when we come off of this, and I'm going to extend it out here because I don't want to cut short my pattern. I don't want to cut short my search pattern because the autopilot's trying to lead the turn. So we're going to get up here. This is the actual official ending of it. And that's when I'm going to say, as the observer, I'm going to say, scanners, rest your eyes. Or scanner, rest your eyes, or photographer, or whoever, rest your eyes. Because it is, I've done the scanner job, and if you're staring out that window, now I got to get offset a little bit to make this turn. You're staring out the window, and it can be hypnotizing, and it can be very tiring on your eyes, especially if you have glare like we do today. If you're looking into the sun, you're squinting, give you a headache in no time. So now I'm going to zoom this back out so I can see where we're headed, and I'm going to start our turn back in to the second leg. And I can zoom it back in to make sure we get to it. And I want to get here, I want to leave myself room to get all the way around. Track out here just a bit more to make sure we have room. I'm looking.
Approaching waypoint.
Sure as hell are. Okay, let's swing that back around. That's right here. Now we're going to struggle to make that, but I have room to correct if I overshoot a bit. I'm trying to learn, it's kind of a procedure turn. And this is, what's my bank angle I got right now? I think I have it set to 20 degrees max bank. I could change that, and I might. But you want to be gentle with the scanners. You're going to be in an airplane for up to 3 hours. And they're not suited for aerobatics and such forth, so you want to be gentle. So this is working out well. This worked out okay. I can get it set. Oh, I got to get it set right up on there. That's really, really close. So that's good. Scanners, get ready, because we're going to be entering the next leg of the search. And I'm going to cheat it a little bit, but by what looks like a few seconds. It doesn't have to be exactly on the dot, but I want to be kind of parallel to that or perpendicular to that. Scanners begin search. And I have my in-grid time. Now, the next time I would need to write down is either we found the target or I would pencil down that we believe we found the target. You have to circle around and verify. You can get a false alarm. So I'd pencil down the first time somebody says, I see it. That would become official. That would be our official target located and basically exit grid time. If we end up having to keep going, then we just erase that time. And frankly, I was keeping good records. I can just erase that one and we'll wait till we actually do find the target. If we don't find the target, we fly to the end of the grid. And when we fly to the end of the grid, we call back to Mission Command. We're ready to return to base. We're kind of heading that way unless you have another tasking. If you've been out for 3 hours, you're not going to get another tasking. You don't have the fuel for it. So this just kind of goes on and on and on. And I'm going to practice a few more legs because why not? It's a beautiful morning to fly. You can see if you can, the 4-flight is keeping up with me. I could zoom in on that. And it's making a nice little record of my track. So we have a little bit of wind. Looks like we have a little bit on the nose. I'm actually up to 90 knots. I need to slow down. Wasn't monitoring my airspeed. Shame on me. So it's going to blow us towards. It's kind of going to blow us towards the next line. So I'm going to extend that. I'm going to make a little bit more of an angle. Take procedure turn because we're going to lose some of that ground as it blows us back in, which is probably the only reason I got away with the first one. It was kind of working for me. Still 87 knots. I'd have trouble slowing this thing down and keeping it there. All right, so we're just about at the end. So scanners, rest your eyes. And I'm going to take my track a little bit further out because of the wind. Oh, I know what I did. I added throttle because we were losing airspeed in the turn and I never took it back out. So do have to manage the throttle. One thing I noticed on the 182 is the throttle is extremely twitchy compared to this one. And if there was ever an airplane in desperate need of a vernier throttle control, it's that airplane. I mean, I'm trying to do manifold pressure, put it at 17, and I like, well, 17.5, and then I'm down to 16 point something. Beast little bit of motion. So with a big bulky airplane like that, that's so solid in flight controls, it's kind of surprising to find the throttle to be quite that sensitive. And I think we can start, I'm going to go a little bit more, and let's see if we can start our turn back. Well, we can definitely start it. Let's see if we can get it to work. And there's our entry waypoint. This is why I put the throttle in before. I'm going to do it again. Normally, I could do this the way Cap does it. They do it with 10 degrees down flap. And I'm within that range, but it would be very, very easy. Their range goes up to about 87. Mine goes to 81 or 82. It would be too easy to overspeed the flaps. And because this airplane flies slow well, it really does fly slow well, there's real no reason to do it. All right, tracking, tracking, tracking. To the sun. A little harder on the scanners right now. Or just the lookers, the observer and the scanner, the lookers. I've met those guys, none of them are lookers. I'm terrible. What are you going to do? The neat thing is I could probably say that in the squad room and everybody would laugh, nobody offended. It's a really great group of guys. I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm having so much fun. This may be the best flying I've ever done. I'm really enjoying this. All right, so here we are. Scanners prepare. And as soon as we roll level, this worked out well this time. I like this. Worked out very well. Scanners begin. And now I want to watch my airspeed. It's going to pick up a little bit because I did add a little throttle. And you're in no giant hurry. I mean, 80 knots is because that's about how slow you can comfortably fly at 182. You don't want to be screaming along at 120 knots because everything's going by way too fast to be looking at it.
Approaching waypoint.
I have yet to actually see a human. I mean, sometimes you're searching for a person, and I've yet to be able to see a human on the ground. Of course, I'm way out here in the country, and there's not a lot of people walking around. But I would like to see somebody walking around down there, so I know what it looks like to see somebody walking around down there. Coming up on the end of our leg. These are pretty short legs because we're looking for a crashed airplane. If we were looking for a person, the legs would be much longer. Kind of like a supermodel. Okay, scanners, take a rest. And I'm going to do my outbound procedure turn. I can see cars, and based on the size of the car, now we're 500 feet higher than we would be. A person is going to show up as like a dot. It's going to be hard to see, but I do think it can be done. I just haven't come across one yet. It's early Sunday morning. Farmers should be out, shouldn't they? Don't they have a reputation for that kind of thing? All right, so this is the one where I didn't have to go as far out because I had the wind working for me. So let's bring it back in. Watch the airspeed. Look for traffic. And this will be our last leg. I've kind of got the feel for it now. And we'll just head back to Bolton. Oh, it's pretty today, really pretty. Everything is still so green, even despite kind of a drought we've been having. A drought-ish. I mean, I'm not having to mow my yard, which is great, but everything is still nice. The crops are all still nice and green. It's a beautiful time to fly. Outside air temperature is 75 degrees. That's bearable, for me anyway. I've been doing a lot of yard work, and it's been really hot for yard work. All right. I mean, brush clearing, things like that. Trimming out just overgrown flower beds and such. A lot of work. Scanners Scanner, get ready. Or whatever the actual phraseology is. I do need to learn the phraseology. We're at 82 knots. That's very close to what we want. I should do a vernier. I don't know why I'm not. All right, let's get us on track. Not quite on track. Wait for the wind. Now down this low, unless it was a wooded area, we would see airplane parts. And that's exactly, you know, this is the scenario we're practicing, is looking for a downed airplane or a missing airplane, which presumably is downed. It won't always be in one piece, depending on what happened. Thunderstorm, it's going to come down in parts. So you wouldn't be looking for a full-size airplane. You'd be looking for something that looks like just pieces of metal. The tail tends to stay together. The engine package is typically there. Oh, scanner, we're in the grid. Sorry, scanners begin. It was kind of a sterile cockpit kind of thing when you're really doing it. I wouldn't be jibber-jabbering like this. Well, I might be, but I shouldn't be. Self-discipline is a big deal. All right, so here we go. There's a junkyard down there now. I can see, you know, trailers and things like that. So to kind of get an idea of what the size of an airplane would be. Again, I am 500. We can go down 500 feet, but there's just no reason to. Trying to get an idea what things would look like. Because as the observer, I mean, I'm looking out that window, the scanner's looking out the left window. As the mission pilot, you're still looking out the left when you're not busy, but you don't let yourself get distracted like I have. You really got to pay attention to your grid. Then this is nice, 30 seconds to turn. That's a nice thing to know. I can see a stop sign, a person standing next to it. I can tell what that would look like. So, kind of get the feel for it. We'll do one more leg because that actually heads us back to Bolton. So we're 9 seconds until we're off of this leg. Actually, I've been extending that again because the autopilot wants to turn early. Autopilot says it can do it. Let's see what happens. Let the autopilot try it. Autopilot doesn't seem all that interested in trying it. There it goes. It's giving me less than my max bank, so it thinks it can do it. I don't think it can. I think it's going to overshoot probably because of the wind. Yeah, it's definitely going to overshoot. Now I could turn up the bank angle. Let's do that on this next leg. I'll turn up the max bank angle. Although you really wouldn't want to do that with somebody in the back swimming around. So I'm going to skip all the scanner calls and all that for now. We're just going to let the plane fly. Let's actually operate like I'm just a pilot. Looks like it's actually going to make it pretty close. It did not compensate well for the wind. So we're going to be a little bit off. Yeah, see, we're a little bit off. So I believe I can get into setup, autopilot setup, roll axis, and what do I have? Max, bank angle limit 35. That's quite a bit. It's not using it all, but I'm going to make it 45. I think the wind confused it a little bit. I know what the wind is going to do. The autopilot has to kind of guess. Well, let's go ahead and let it make the next turn and see if it can do it or not. Once it gets back on nav, but I think the problem is it's going to turn too early. So what you would do in that case is when I set up the legs on the ForeFlight, I would set them up longer. I'd set them for more than half a mile on each. I'd set it up for maybe a mile to give the airplane more time to get turned around. So that's one way of addressing that, and that might work. It might be able to get itself back on course, given a little more time to do it. But let's go ahead and let it try. Yeah, see, it's turning way early, so we're missing. The scanner is missing this much of the search pattern. You really don't want to do that. You want to do the full search pattern. And I think it's easier to do it with track anyway. It keeps me more in the game. It keeps me paying attention to the flying, or it should. Should keep me in the game a lot better than just trusting the autopilot. But it's interesting to know what your airplane can do. And we're not in a 45-degree bank, so it did not use all of the allowable bank, and it way overshot again. So yeah, I think track is the way to do it. So let's break out of this. I'm going to head back. I'll get you turned on for landing because those are always interesting. Oh, I just realized I am wearing my practice flight suit. This is one that is not officially set up for Civil Air Patrol. I do have a different one that has all the patches and all that stuff. I'm wearing it because part of this observer thing and pilot thing is knowing where things are. these have a tremendous amount of pockets. They're designed to be accessible. They're designed for fighter pilots. I can get at anything, and I'm trying to get a hold of, or just get in the habit of, a pen is here, my ID is here, my phone is here. Sometimes we have to use the phone to text in if we're too far away for comms. We'll go ahead and text things in. So I need to be able to just by habit reach out and get my pen, reach out and get my phone. So that's why I'm wearing this. Well, plus it's cool, you know. I mean, it makes panties drop. Sorry, but you know, just to get a fuller practice. And I mean, practice the way you're going to fly the way you practice, right? So we have about looks like 6 minutes to get back to Bolton. I can go back and give it some throttle. It's not going to be long at all, but I will. We'll do the landing together.
Which downwind for runway 22 would you prefer?
I would prefer left downwind 22.
Terminal 4 Delta Golf, report of infield left downwind runway 22. Wind is 240 at 05, altimeter 3014.
Report midfield left downwind runway 22. 3014, we're good on the altitude. So that was kind of interesting. I reported over Booton, which is directly on the runway center line. So he asked me which downwind I would prefer, which is nice. I mean, I'm actually not exactly over Booton. I'm in the vicinity of Booton, so left downwind works better for me. Either one would have worked, but it was very nice for him to ask. So I'm going to start losing altitude and such forth. And how far out? We're 5 minutes out. Oh, actually 3 minutes out. I'll go ahead and leave it on. Get you caught up on other things. Been doing a lot of visiting with my grandsons, which is actually quite fun. They're the cutest little guys. They don't do much but sleep and poop and eat and sleep and poop and eat, and which, you know, basically is retirement. So we're right on the same page there. I'm still a little nervous holding them. They're still so small, but I am enjoying it. It's actually a great thing. I really enjoy having them and visiting with them. What else have I got going on? The book has it's sold. Well, it stopped selling 3 days ago. I'm working on the Schmetterling book. I'm actually diligently working on the Schmetterling book, by which I mean I've written the first half of the second chapter. But the words come easy. It's the book I wanted to write. The words come very
770 Yankee Bolton ground, runway 22, taxi be at Bravo and Alpha. Wind is 240 at 04, altimeter 3014.
It's just a matter of getting me to sit down and do it. So when I can sit down and start writing, if I can get an early start in the morning, I can write for a few hours. Most of it's already written in my head. I know what I want to say. When I get a little further in, when I get past basically the tail kit, and I think I went with wings after that. Well, it might have been fuselage. I think I went after the tail. There's much more detailed writing that I can base it on right now. I mean, the chapter I'm on right now is why an RV-12, and basically the way it starts is, you know, it's a very obvious question right now. The answer to that's very obvious right now. RV-12s are extremely popular right now. But when I started talking about or thinking about buying one or building one, that was not the case. There were very few flying. There were some being built, and it wasn't quite as obvious. I'd never even seen one, never been in one. It wasn't quite as obvious that it was the airplane for me. So I did take a bit of a chance there. But, so it's going well. Based on my lack of self-discipline and other things I have to do, I have a nice little boat now. You saw that in the last video. It's not going to be quick to get it done. And it doesn't really need to be. But I do feel some level of pressure because it's a wide open market right now. There's so much interest in the RV-12. Seems like the thing will just fly off the shelves, so to speak. So we're going to have to do the sterile cockpit now. We're just about to our left downwind. And I'm going to go ahead and remind myself that it's 1704 on the pattern altitude. And it is, which means we're going to do about 1720. I'm down to pattern speed, so we're really ready to go. But, you know, self-discipline again. Civil Air Patrol does have a sterile cockpit rule, which I'm violating as we speak, or as I speak. Something to get used to.
Leaving altitude.
There we go. That's what I want. 1760 is pretty close. We're still descending a little bit, so we'll get there just before we call him. There's 1720, so we're going to stay there. And I'll go get the flaps down here in a second. Once I do my midfield call, I'll get the flaps down. Tower 4 Delta Golf, midfield, left downwind 22.
4 Delta Golf, runway 22, clear to land.
Clear to land, runway 22, 4 Delta Golf. Getting slower on my speech again. Got to. They're very, very, very slow in cap. It's like cap 1, 2, tray, 4, over. And there's a reason for that. Having experienced the ground-bound radio, it can be hard to hear. There's a lot of static and such. And, you know, the message, it's important to get the message the first time. Like if you're reading a lat long, you do it very, very slowly. They read it back. You have to respond whether they read back correctly or correct them. So it's going to be a matter of practice. Just be more appropriately slow on the radio. Don't know that I want to be that slow dealing with the airport. But, you know, habits are habits, and they cross airplanes whether you want them to or not. And there's left base, and we're landing way long again, so we don't really need to breach our way down there. This is not a land on the numbers kind of day because there is a departure waiting, so I'll do my halfway, get out of his way. Now what do we got for wind? It's basically right down the runway, so we don't have to worry about crosswind right now. We can just go ahead and turn final. Now we're down to 65, which is what I want. I've been trying to get down to 60 for the flare because it makes less of a flare. And it's appropriate. You really could do this at 55 if you chose to. I don't really want to get that close to the edge. Not that it's not a huge risk, but there's my 60. It's all numbers management. Fly it by the numbers. That's what Van said. Fly it by the numbers. We gave you the numbers, use them. Or words to that effect. That's a beautiful airplane there. Oh, it's a nice Cessna. I'm starting to redevelop an affinity for Cessnas. They're so wonderful to fly. They're not pilot's airplane like this one. They're more management airplanes, but there's a time and place for that. Looks like we're just about going to hit it. We want the dashed bars, not solid bars. Anywhere in between is good for me. I call any of that a success. There we go. Get that nose up, keep that nose up, get that right rudder in, and we're down. Okay, right off the 3, monitor ground. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for riding along, folks. Hope I didn't bore you.